Jeremiah. It's the last chapter in the book, and coincidentally, it's just the last chapter of the class, last meeting of the class. So, as Jerusalem is destroyed and led away, you'll be led away to a new class next week. Hopefully not into captivity, but... So let's spend 5 minutes this morning level setting on where we are and getting you situated historically with this chapter in the Bible. While the Bible, again, is not a historical document, there is one of the signs of the inspiration of the Bible is that the Bible matches historical and archaeological events that have occurred. I was talking to Hiram a couple of weeks ago and told him I could probably do a whole class on the archaeology of the Bible. There's that much there, but we won't go into that. 732 BC. 732 BC. The Assyrians in 732 BC, the Assyrians lead the land of Israel, not the land of Judah that we're talking about in Jeremiah. 732 BC, they lead the land of Israel into captivity, which begs the question. We read a lot about the antipathy between Jews and Samaritans. Why does that antipathy exist? Why is there such a hatred of the Samaritan people among the Jews? Why is there that much hatred of those people among the Jews? Mm-hmm. And those people were the Assyrians. In 732, when Sargon came and took the children of Israel, the land of Israel, into captivity, many of the people from Assyria came and lived in the area of Samaria and intermarried. We've heard this story before. God told the children of Israel, you go in and you wipe the land clean. Don't intermarry. But yet, they did. The same thing happened when the Assyrians came. They intermarried with the Samaritan people, and the Jews considered them a mongrel race. And thus we have stories like Jesus at the well with the woman of Samaria, and the antipathy that the Jews had for the Samaritans. So that's a sidelight in history that you need to understand. So someone might ask you, why were the Samaritans so hated? They were hated because they intermarried with the Assyrian people during the captivity period, and the Jews considered them a mongrel race and would have nothing to do with them. Okay? 732 BC, the children of Israel, the land of Israel, is taken into captivity by the Assyrians. And we move down through history, and we move to the third year of King Jehoiakim in 606 BC. 10,000 people are led into captivity when the Babylonians make their first intrada into the land of Judah. Okay, 606 BC. Nebuchadnezzar makes his first intrada into the land of Judah, and he takes 10,000 captives back with him to Babylon. In that first instance of people being taken out, who is taken? What famous Bible person is taken at that time? Daniel, as well as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Those four are taken into captivity in 606 BC when Nebuchadnezzar makes his first entry into the land of Judah. During the 5th year of Jehoiachin, in 597, so a few years later, a few years after that, 597 BC, the second intrada is taken by Nebuchadnezzar into the land of Judah. And who's taken at that time? Nope. It'd be the book a couple ones past Jeremiah. Ezekiel. Ezekiel's taken in. So if you read Daniel 1, verse 1, if you read Ezekiel 1, verse 1, you will get the time frame for when these two gentlemen were taken into captivity by the Babylonians, all right? So now we've come down to present day. We're now in 586. So we've jumped from 606 to 597, and now we're in 586. So 11 years later. And that's the setting for Jeremiah chapter 52. It's the destruction of Jerusalem, the taking into captivity of the children of the land of Judah. Chapter 52, the book of Jeremiah. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he became king. He reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. This is not the same Jeremiah. It's a different Jeremiah. Jeremiah was quite a common name. Now, you want parallel history with this. If you're a good Old Testament Bible student, you want good Bible parallel history with this. You want to read 2 Kings 24. 2 Kings 24 parallels this same story. And we know that because 1st and 2nd Kings were written by Jeremiah as well as Jeremiah and Lamentations. He wrote those 4 books, okay? So, Nebuchadnezzar set Zedekiah on the throne to be his puppet king after Jehoiachin, who had only reigned 3 months, rebelled against Nebuchadnezzar. He was displaced from the throne, and Zedekiah took his name, or Zedekiah took his place. What was Zedekiah's real name? Nebuchadnezzar changed his name to Zedekiah. What was his real name? What was his given name? Do we know? It's Mattaniah. Mattaniah was his real name, but Nebuchadnezzar changed his name when he put him on the throne. And again, that's in 2 Kings 24. Okay, his original name was Mattaniah. He changed it to Zedekiah, which means the Lord is righteous. Zedekiah means the Lord is righteous. All right. And he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, verse 2, according to all that Jehoiakim had done. So we have a series of really bad kings following Josiah, who was the good king. These are his sons. And all of his sons did evil in the sight of the Lord according to what Jehoiakim had done. And again, that's 2 Kings chapters 23 and 24 if you want a good parallel to that. Zedekiah's evil that he did in verse 2 is in 2 Chronicles chapter 36. So you can see how 1st and 2nd Kings and 1st and 2nd Chronicles, which mirror one another with some small differences, additions or appendices that they put in there, you find more information in those two than when you get to Jeremiah. You fold the whole story together. Okay? For because of the anger of the Lord, verse 3, for because of the anger of the Lord, it came to the point in Jerusalem and Judah that he cast them out of his presence, and Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon. God's patience and God's suffering at the hands of his people, or his suffering, his long-suffering nature, I guess, his patience and his long-suffering have now finally run its course. Not willing that any should perish, but all should come to repentance. He's not willing that any should perish. He's going to give all of the world What does that mean? No food, no water, no sanitation, as it was in those days. No nothing. And so what naturally follows from that, how long did this siege last? How long did this siege last? It's in here. You just have to do some quick math. How long does this siege last? It lasts 30 months, almost 3 years. How many of you have ever been starved? And don't one of you raise your hand? Because we don't know hunger. We don't know hunger. 30 months. 30 months, almost 3 years. No food. Very little water. So the city was besieged until the 11th year, verse 5. The 11th year, 30 months, almost 3 years. The 6th verse. On the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine was so severe in the city that there was no food for the people of the land. What does that mean? What do starving people do? They die. Some are reduced to cannibalism. Lamentations. And you can put out here beside verse 5, you can put these verses. Lamentations 1 verse 19. I called to my lovers, but they deceived me. My priests and elders perished in the city while they sought food to revive their strength. Verse 20. Look, O Lord, for I am in distress. My stomach churns. My heart is wrung within me because I have been very rebellious. In the street, the sword bereaves. In the house, it is like death. Chapter 2 of Lamentations, verse 11. My eyes are spent with weeping. My stomach churns. My bile is poured out onto the ground because of the destruction of the daughter of my people, because infants and babies faint in the streets of the city. Lamentations 2:12. They cry to their mothers, where is the bread and the wine, as they faint like a wounded man in the streets of the city, as their life is poured out on their mother's bosoms. Lamentations 2:20. Look, O Lord, and see, with whom have you dealt thus? Should women eat the fruit of their womb, the children of their tender care? Should priests and prophets be killed in the sanctuary of the Lord? And on it goes through Lamentations chapters 2, 3, and 4. Women were boiling and eating their babies. You've not known starvation. You've not known starvation. 30 months, the city falls. A breach was made. A breach was made in the city, verse 7. And all the men of war fled and went out to the city by night by the way of the gate between the two walls by the king's garden. And the Chaldeans, these are the Babylonians, and the Chaldeans were around the city, and they went in the direction of the Arabia. Nebuchadnezzar uses a typical tactic, building a siege wall around the city, preventing business and trade from entering or leaving the city, starving the population into surrender. So crucial was this event in the Old Testament that it is recorded 4 times. It's recorded in 2 Kings 25, in 2 Chronicles 36, in Jeremiah 39, and here in chapter 52. The intended goal of the siege was to starve the people out. After 30 months, they had achieved their goal. If you read those verses in Lamentations, all 18 months or all 30 months of the siege are encapsulated in those few verses that we read. The army of the Chaldeans, again the Babylonians, the army of the Chaldeans pursued the king and overtook Zedekiah in the plains of Jericho, and all his army scattered from him. They then captured the king and brought him up to the king of Babylon at Riblah in the land of Hamath. And the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar passed sentence on him. The army of the Chaldeans now have pursued the men of Judah, thinking that they could get away. They were captured nonetheless. What would it be like for those of you with children to have your children killed before your face? Your children are lined up in front of you and slain. And on top of that, then your eyes are put out. And so the last thing you see in this life is your children being slain. And then subsequently your eyes are put out. Yes, sir.